How hard did you push it till I black out? Yes. Numerous times, yes.
What's happening, Municipals? This is Ashton and not Big Chris. It seems to have been a while since Big C and I have talked on a pod, but that is because it is time for us to wrap up our Bandon Dunes experience. I have old friend of the show, Chris Hussey, who seems to appear constantly, and new friend of the show, Digital Dash, goes by many names, Dash Rovner, and excited to kind of have both of their perspectives, because when I threw it to the group, these two were eagerly excited to come on and chop it up. So, gentlemen, how are we doing tonight? Hussey, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me, Ashton. As always, it feels like my second home here on the podcast, so thank you. I'm currently drinking a Central Otago Pinot Noir, New Zealand, wonderful, but I'm excited to talk Bandon Dunes.
Wow, just had to crowbar that in. Very nice. I think I'm drinking a canned white wine that Liz said, quote, I bought for you quite some time ago. So kudos to you for your Otago Asian Otago is on the DP World Tour. That's the difference.
Central Otago.
There you go. Okay, Dash, save us. How are you doing, my man?
Doing well. Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me on. I am drinking a Buffalo Trace whiskey, Kentucky, USA.
Hell yeah, brother.
Just excited to join you all. Start talking
Amazing.
about Bandon Dunes. Good time.
And it's kind of a perfect segue because I noticed that was your drink of choice at Bandon Dunes. There was quite a few of those consumed, which I was impressed because I was like, man, that 6 a.m. wake up call and getting the body activated, it kind of hits harder when you have a couple of those Buffalo Trace. But that's the difference between what, you're 27, 6?
26.
26,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
26 and 31 is a little bit different. So.
26 years young, and I love old fashions. I love them so much. I got them tattooed on my thigh, so it's real.
That's a fun fact. I didn't even know that. Amazing.
I didn't have a chance to wear shorts on our Bandon trip.
No, yeah, like we said last time, we talked for 2 fucking hours and didn't really talk about how bad the weather is. Maybe that's something we can highlight. But that takes us perfectly in, guys, because I'm gonna try to do a lot less talking this time because went on and on about Bandon trails. But I want to touch on y'all's highlights and lowlights. I'm sure there's some redundancies, but I want to make sure you guys can share. So, Huss, do you want to start off about some of your highlights again? Things about Bandon that they did well. We'll talk about the golf courses, but anything like we had the shuttle mentioned last time, we had the logistics, any of the highlights that you want to talk about, Huss?
Yeah, I mean, I think I won't talk about the shuttle because it is awesome and everyone's already talked about it. I think the preserve might have been the highlight of the trip. Even though we were there, it was our first day. We had just arrived, that afternoon, that morning and afternoon. We played preserve in the afternoon. And just being able to play the preserve with 9 people and just kind of really, it's all the icebreakers. Like, we didn't know, a couple people, and it's just a fun way to really start your golf trip. And from then it was just like, it's really hard to describe playing with 9 people and, going over to, I guess it's like hole number 5 that we were on, and we all got to, hit putters, downhill 70 yards. It's something I've never done before, and I don't think you can really do that anywhere else, at least me speaking. I've never done that before, and I think that was honestly the highlight. Everything else was amazing after that, but that set the tone of the whole trip, and I think everyone needs to go. If you're on a buddy's trip, go to the preserve right away, first thing when you get there, and you're just like on cloud 9 afterwards.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, like they say, first hole is a handshake into the course. I think the preserve is a handshake into Bandon. Like, I recommend, if you haven't gone, to play that first. You'll see some of the best views and green complexes on the property just from that. And it's just a very casual way of introducing you to Bandon. I've seen people and heard about them, playing without shoes on. It's just such a laid back way of welcoming the group, especially with 9 people we're able to go off at one time. Play a little, closest to the pin challenge, throw some money out there, just get the vibes going for the whole weekend or the whole week.
And if I may add, it was an introduction into the weather of that we were going to have. We got every single type of weather. I remember I was wearing a vest, and it got really hot at one point as we were kind of going down the hill. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it just started hailing on us. So we all threw on our raincoats because then it just started raining after the hail. And it was a great introduction to like, hey, the weather out here, it's going to be like hit or miss. Sometimes it's going to be wonderful. Other times it's going to be just absolutely terrifying. And, we figured it out.
Yeah, and I think that it really summarizes, like, we've already talked about, but, we'll continue to emphasize, it's about golf. And, like, it's about golf, but like I think I said last week or 2 weeks ago, Bandon is sort of the canvas for these relationships to be able to develop, right? And I think that, to y'all's point, the preserve is perfect because, it's great to get some swings and stuff. But, I had that moment where I was realizing, like, I felt bad because I was like, okay, Jake knows me and Nick, but, like, Jake is meeting a whole bunch of people, right? Big Chris is there. He can't swing, he can't swing a full round, but he can come in. And so to have the 9 of us just being able to, like, organically mix and mingle, is perfect. And like I said, is it, like, in theory a little overpriced? Maybe. But again, all that money is going to the Bandon Preserve Trust. And so, you're in general donating to kind of the Kaiser family, which, again, thank God for them and can't wait to go experience all the other Kaiser properties. But that's when you can just be like, cool, you're donating it to a good cause. And to y'all's point, I think it really gives you, I'm sure it'd be fun anytime, but it really sets the tone for the entire trip. So I'm glad you highlighted that because we made mention of it last time. But, and as John said too, I think he's right. There's some of those holes, like, you could put, like if you think about it on trails, number 4 or 5, that's like 100-yard par 3, right? Like, you could that's a great hole. They shouldn't change it. But the point is, like, you could almost see that hole at the preserve, or there's holes that you could almost sub in. And I think that's the amazing thing with Core Crenshaw, right? It's like, cool, there's 13 holes that you could drop around the property and it would feel very authentic and just a cool way to start. Dash, what about you? What's a highlight or another highlight for you that you want to make mention of?
Many of the guys have already mentioned it, just the convenience of everything. I really enjoyed how everything was laid out. The rooms were awesome. We had enough space for 4 guys, and I think it built, you were kind of able to build relationships within your rooms because we kind of had a competitive thing going. And then, because it was wet outside, having fireplaces and warmers we were able to lay out empty our bags, lay out everything from our bags, and still have room to move around and have a recovery room. So I think that was really nice. A couple of us were able to get out and play the shorties course a little late, right before dark. So just having so many different little places and nooks that you can go to spend time and hang out with different groups of people, smaller, larger groups, just the variety that they have. It was a lot and so much fun to experience.
Yeah, and to your point, Dash, one thing that I'm already thinking about for our 2025 trip, and obviously we'll discuss with y'all, but I don't think I fully processed how affordable the rooms were. Right? I mean, what it boiled down to essentially was $70 per person per night, which I feel like with the price of Airbnbs and hotel, that's incredibly competitive. And I think my thing originally when I was trying to jam all this golf in is it was like, we got to keep the costs low. But to your point, I think actually building in one extra night next time and not having golf is, because once you play one, you kind of want to play twice to get that second rate. But to your point, having a full day in the middle where it's like, hey, we're going to, like, play shorties and we're going to play the putting course and just, like we didn't we said we were going to go to the Labyrinth, that we didn't do it, right? We were so focused on the golf. It's quote unquote only $70 more, right, to build in that day. And I think that's something I want to change, because I love the focus on golf. But if we have that day of just being able to optimize for the quote unquote free things on property and do a little bit more exploring, where it's not like, okay, walking off the course at 6, dinner time, and then 6:30 wake up call. If the rooms are incredibly expensive, then okay, maybe you got to maximize, but it's $70 a piece. I think it's a good note for people that if you can deal with the PTO, and since you're booking this 2 years in advance, like you literally might work somewhere else the next time you go to Bandon, you can take an extra day and have a little recovery. And that's sort of a mental note for me for our trip next time. But I'm glad you called that out, because just so many wonderful quote unquote free options, all for the price of essentially $70 a man, to build in that little bit of breathing space so your body's not kind of breaking down as much on the end into the trip. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think I've heard people talk about their trips to Bandon, how they haven't stayed at the resort, and I always question them, because it was so nice to be so close to everything. Our round got rained out at Sheep Ranch, well, we were still able, we saw a clear hour or two in the afternoon, and we all shipped it to the putting course. So I don't, you have all these things available to you right on property. And just the ease and convenience of staying on is so worth it. I don't think, the money didn't matter to me about, whether we're staying on hotel or getting an Airbnb. It was, I'll stay there every time I go.
I completely agree with both of what you guys are saying. Like, having the ability to go and like take a nap after like a rain out was very important, like to me, just because plan preserve and then 36 holes and then 18 or 11, it was a lot of golf. And like it's a lot of golf when the weather's nice. It's a lot of golf when the weather's not great. And being able to go and just, hey, I'm just going to go back and like take a shuttle and take a nap, take a shower, take a nap, and see you guys at dinner. Like, that's really nice. If you had to like coordinate driving back all 4 people back to a hotel somewhere, just the convenience is really great. So yeah, I agree with that too. That's awesome.
And just a note to the listeners, as a reminder, you can't get tee times if you don't stay on property. So it's like, that's all aspirational. Like the idea of you getting, maybe if it's like, I've heard of people like one person, or if like 2 of us are going to pop up there, sure, that's fine. If you want 8, or maybe next time we do this, it'll be 12. If you want to get 12 people coordinated and knowing you can't book tee times until a month out, like you're just not going to do that. Right. So I would say don't do that. If you're listening to this and trying to plan, just stay on property and you'll be happier for it. But Dash, what do you want to say, my man?
Just the last thing I would say about the plus about staying on property and just going to Bandon in general is having that member number, or that number that you charge everything to. It is the easiest thing at any location: food, drink, golf, merch, whatever, cash for your caddies. Like, it is so easy. It's like better than Vegas, how easy it is to spend money.
Spoken from experience right there. Dash was absolutely beating up the North Bend casino, and he had how much were you up, Dash, at one point? Quite a bit, right?
Whoa! You can't talk about these.
Never mind.
I don't like bringing it up.
We don't.
Chris saw it was close to $5 and then it went downhill real quick.
It was pretty incredible, and then I was like, this smoke is fucking me, so I'm getting out of here.
Yeah, as Nick is like actually getting COVID, so that's sick.
It's fair.
Well, that's a perfect segue. Lowlights. Again, we talked about the food. I'm sure you guys are going to agree, but anything else for the listeners beyond just the food being kind of a tough scene?
I'll start. I do have to mention the food just because it did affect 2 of my rounds.
Yeah, dude, you had the crummy tummy big time.
We were deep in the playoffs of our match play tournament, and crummy tummy to say the least. That was after the Pacific Catch, I think the restaurant is, meal that we had the night before. I will say the Forge restaurant I was a fan of. I don't think, I may be in the minority, but I really enjoyed it. Maybe it was Chris's wine. I don't know. I think that would be my only flaw in the entire resort. So I'll keep it short there.
I'll let you go, Ashton. After you, sir.
No, I mean I've already waxed on for 2 hours. I've already made it clear. You're next.
Honestly, it's kind of hard, other than the food, to find a low light. I really, they did everything so well. I mean, the low light is probably the shuttle, the private shuttle getting there. You kind of have to trust other people who have done it on property.
Yeah,
it's hard. I really don't know. They do so many things so well. Food, obviously, but yeah. I mean, maybe that bunker bar is kind of like a tough scene. Personally, that was kind of a low light, walking in there and just being like, oh shit.
Hussey, do you want to tell people what that is for context?
Yeah, so the bunker bar is like a cigar bar in the basement of the main lodge, and
just like 1,000 dudes in a very confined space.
It's just, we walked in there and we were like, let's get the fuck out of here. So
it was worse than any casino I've ever been in. It was like no ventilation, probably a small room, guys shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
And it was just not the vibe that we were going for, not the vibe. Yeah. Unless you're over 50, I think that's you're okay.
Yeah. I think it's very much like, the way I can describe it is, if that is your scene, cool. It was just not our scene, right? Like, I'm not saying the bunker bar is bad. If you want to go yuck it up with a bunch of guys and drink whiskey and smoke cigars, then you'd love it. It's just that wasn't what we were trying to do. That's it.
Oh, here's one. It's not like a super low light, but what I've heard is the Bandon Trails Clubhouse, the restaurant, historically has been open for dinner.
Yeah, I said that 2 weeks ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, totally.
Sorry, man. But anyways.
Many people are saying.
Fuck. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's all good. At least you listen to the pod. There's sometimes where people quote stuff at me and they're like, yeah, I mean, like, I said that, but it's all good.
Yeah, sorry. It was 2 weeks ago, man.
It's all good.
It's happened.
It's all good.
Sorry.
A lot's happened. Yeah.
Anyway,
so the last flaw that I do have, and you might have said on the pod, it was 2 weeks ago. That's a long time for me.
Yeah.
Is the need for like a little market on property, like a little.
No, that's a good call. Yeah,
dude, 100%.
For over the counter, for snacks, beers, anything like that. You need to have a little grocery store that people can buy things, because we had multiple nights where we weren't really doing anything. We maybe wanted to hang out in one of our rooms, drink some beer, whatever it may be, or snacks. Like, it was such a weird thing to ask the restaurant that we were at after we had closed out, like, can we buy a 6-pack? Can we buy a bottle of wine? Whatever it may be. Need to have a little market.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add there is I'm the dork who like read a couple of the Bandon books. I understand that at a high level, they were talking about like alcohol laws and stuff. If you go read the book, which is, love the book, but it's essentially like propaganda for Mike Kaiser. Like, Mike Kaiser knows how to get stuff done. Like, the whole reason for Bandon, like, he found a way through like environmental protection. Like, I'm not making fun of him. He's a businessman who's been very, very smart. Pretty sure Mike Kaiser can find a way to figure out the alcohol law where they can sell you Coors Light at a huge premium. Like, 'cause we were having that discussion, Dash, you're right. We're like, what would we pay for like a 12-pack of Coors Light? We're like, $50 probably. Like, that's probably what we would pay, and like, they can't serve it to us. So, and honestly, the alcohol, yes, but to your point, like, there was mornings where like, this is just my mom making an influence on me, but like, when my stomach is bad, I like to drink like the pink Pepto-Bismol, because as a kid my mom was like, it coats your stomach, right? Like, I could have used some Pepto-Bismol on some of those mornings, as you could have as well. So it's not just that, it's also like Band-Aids, Pepto-Bismol, that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, we'd love to sell you over, please charge me 4x for a 12-pack of beer, but also just give me some essentials so that I can go make my tea time. And as Pat said a couple weeks ago, not be wondering, should I bring toilet paper, and like be stressed out about where he's going to run off to in case something goes sideways. Like, first of all, maybe make better food, but second of all, give us a market with those options if you didn't plan ahead. So totally agree. And shout out to JD. I think JD was the one who was like, we want to pay you $60 for Miller Lights. How do we do this? And they're like, we can't do this. Okay, so let's move along to the golf courses. So we're going to call this Doak Day because, as we kind of discussed in the past, we're not going to talk about sheep. We'll do it next time because, as Dash said, we played 11 holes and the weather was terrible. But we're going to start with Pacific Dunes, which, depending on what list, it's basically, the rankings are a bit subjective, but allegedly it's the best course on property anywhere, top 5 public course in the country. And as you heard last time, but we didn't talk about it, but on our list, definitely didn't hit that way for us initially. But guys, just Hussey, high level, we'll start kind of before we get into specifics, high level. Tell me about your impressions of Pacific Dunes.
Yeah, so this was our second round after Trails, and actually, in fact, Dash, you and I were playing a match. We were playing our final match for our bracket, trip, challenge, knockout bracket, and so I think personally I was locked in pretty hard into that round, and had the game face on, the whole way. But overall, I enjoyed Pacific Dunes. I think there were a lot of things that I was, honestly confused about. There's a lot of blind shots. There's a lot of, kind of like dogleggy holes, a few boring holes. But then there's obviously the stuff right on the water that is probably the best holes on the property. I think we didn't get to see what Pacific Dunes was really like when the wind is howling from the north in the summertime, when the wind is howling from the north in the summertime. I think if we were to play that course in when it was meant to be played in certain respects, I think it'd be a very different golf course, and it would actually be much more difficult, but also in some ways much more enjoyable. So, Pacific Dunes. I would love to, talk more about it with you guys.
Cool. You're in the right place. That's exciting to hear. Dash, what about you? High level opinions.
So first impression, just to preface, I had just finished Trails and I had puked in between at lunch right before this round and didn't eat anything. Hadn't really eaten anything all day long. So I was kind of struggling. I was definitely in the zone from a match perspective in the championship match against Hussey. I knew I had to, have my A game, which is probably why it's been hard for me to remember the entire course. I think it kind of blends all together. Definitely some standout holes in the 18, but in my opinion, I think it was overhyped from my perspective. A lot of guys that I talked to said Pacific Dunes #1 and what I've read and everything. But really, looking back overall, I think there were a couple of courses there that I would choose or want to play again over Pac Dunes. But obviously with the circumstances that I was in, I definitely want to play it again, give it another chance. And maybe it will move up in my ranks. We'll see.
Why? Obviously, there's a million ways you can take this conversation, but the thing that I've been thinking about a lot that I think is worth discussing tonight, why do you both think that it is ranked so highly? This isn't making fun of people who rank it that highly. It just, to y'all's point, this is the one that I was like, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, like, I selfishly wanted to like Trails the most. Like, I personally was most excited for Trails. But removing my bias, the answer was Pacific Dunes, because it's like, again, objectively a top 5 course in the country. So like now that we've played at Hussey, I agree with you, there's different conditions, but if we have to summarize, and I want to hear each of your opinions, like Hussey, like why do you think it is in such high regard?
I think it's because it's an incredibly hard golf course. I think it's a really... You think about the first hole. It's 304 yards from the green tees, which is what we played. And we had wind. It was downwind for us. And, I think, Dash, both of us, we hit, 4 iron or something like that. But if you're playing it into a strong headwind, you look at it and you're like, oh, it's 304 yards. This can't be that hard. And you hit driver and it goes offline, and that green, it's all about positioning. It's strange. And it's trying to be like, link style golf, but there's so much strategy in like, oh, hit it exactly here. It feels there's kind of like a Parkland element to that golf course where it's still links, it's still wide open, but there's a lot of like target golf in the sense that if you really want to play well, you have to hit it right here at this target. So I think it really forces you to do certain things and is a quote unquote true test of golf because of how hard it is and all the questions it asks. It's not get out there, spray driver, and be fine like some links courses are where it's super wide open. This one it makes you think that it's wide open. It makes you think that you can kind of spray it a little bit, but you have to be in the right spot every single hole. So I think it's just a very hard golf course, and that's why it's regarded so highly.
Yeah, I would say I would echo what Chris said. I really don't have much more feedback other than that. I was literally thinking, links style yet target golf because it's so surrounded by all these penal areas that it's so hard to, get up and down from and hold the green from certain areas. So it's tough. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's just a larger discussion then. And to y'all's point, I mean, I've read the articles that actually kind of analyze and frankly tear apart like our ranking system, and I think it's probably the Webb Simpson school of like, cool, just like make it tighter and make the greens smaller and make the greens harder. Like it's the kind of like things that I think those of us who are candidly a little bit younger and a little bit more open-minded about golf courses are like I don't know, like is harder better, right? Like, I think we'd actually probably say no, right? I mean, I know for me, this is a side note, but the course, probably the course that I am most excited to play, period, is Mammoth Dunes. Just because from what I've heard, it's a bunch of slopes that basically move the ball towards the hole. And like, I remember listening to the No Laying Up pod, and like I think Ben Hotailing was like, yeah, I made like 8 birdies and it was a blast, right? It's like, it's the kind of the opposite of this, right? Where it's like, no, like we're actually going to build a lot of things that are trying to move the ball towards the hole, and like it's hard ish, but if you kind of get cooking in the right spots, you can just light it up, and like that sounds really, really fun. But yeah, I didn't think about it that way. I mean, I think also too, one of my Captain Obvious ideas is it's probably obviously the piece of land too, right? Like one thing I continue to think about a lot that I mentioned last time is who is coming to Bandon, right? Because as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, for all of us, I mean, we're spoiled. Like we've played a lot of coastal golf. We've seen coastal golf. Bandon's beautiful, don't get me wrong. But like I think the best analog, and I kind of wish he had done one of these pods, is Jake, right? Jake lives in suburban Atlanta, right? Like, and he was just watching him look out at when we were on number 4. Is it the really hard number 4 Pack Dunes, right? That's the one that's like into the wind that was playing like 500 yards, the par 4, I think.
The one, it's the ocean on the right. You got to go over a little traverse.
Yeah.
Yep. That's exactly it. Yep.
Yeah. Like watching Jake just look out at the water there, I was kind of like, to y'all's point, it's like these Raiders are probably people coming from like non-coastal areas whose are a little bit older who think that hard is good, and know the name Tom Doak, right? So it's like check. And there's also the mystique of, it's kind of crazy when you read the book about Bandon. This was like, he had done kind of something, but this was kind of his first real project. So there's sort of that like savant, like myth making component as well. Like, oh my God, this is like Tom Doak's full project. It's really hard. It's on the water. And so I think that's kind of where this comes from. But I don't know. I mean, I think that's where at some point it might be worth like us talking to like Zach Welsh, NorCal Golf Guys, because like he told me that like, he's like, after you play trails like 6 or 7 times, it won't be your favorite. And maybe this will get better. So I don't know. The point is all these rankings will evolve, but I think that the hard component is something that I didn't think about. And also just kind of an interesting note that like, the fact that people think hard is good is kind of crazy with how hard golf is, right? Like,
yeah. Well, and I'm literally just, I'm looking at the scorecard right now, and I've never thought about this, but it's Pacific Dunes is, so, all right. If you look at the scorecard and you take away all mention of where this course is, what it is, all of that, and you just look at each hole and as a whole, you can tell what golf course this is. What other golf course has 4 par 3s on a back nine, 2 par 3s in a row, a bunch of short par 4s, and 1-2 holes above 500 yards. Like, there's not a lot of golf courses out there. And I think about place. It's in an incredibly unique place, but this course it's kind of its own story. It's unlike any course, just from the numbers standpoint, from a scorecard, you can pick it out easily. And maybe that's another reason why it's ranked so highly, is that it's unlike anything that's ever been done before. And that's what Tom Doak has been known for. He's the savant of the golf architecture world. He's read all the books. He knows every single hole by heart, all this stuff. And he basically put together a golf course that now people are going to study and be able to easily identify it just based on the progression of the holes. So maybe that's another thing that people take into account when they start ranking it. It's just incredibly unique.
Yeah, and maybe what it is the way we can think about it is, and I stand by this, like, I think it's an incredibly important golf course. It's probably just like not exactly our golf course, right? Like, it'd be interesting, and we probably could do this offline, but to pull the thread of like what courses exist because of Tom Doak, right? And I bet that list is incredibly long and important and cool. Probably courses we've played. But it just probably means that like Pacific Dunes isn't for us. Because the way that I put it last time is like, I think that it's like a sugar high and a sugar crash, right? Like when you get to like that short par 3, number 12, like 12 and 13 are like back to back, like 2 of the coolest golf holes ever. Like that. Well, ironically, I say it's a short par 3. Apparently, to your point, Hussey, to the north wind, Maddie told us that people hit 3-wood. So the fact that you have this cool coastal hole that can go anywhere from a chippy 9-iron to a 3-wood is sick. And then again, that, 14 where it's like the whole thing, or, 13, the whole thing just feels like it's about to fall into the ocean. Incredible, right? And yeah, there's those like super snoozy holes like 7 and 8, the 2 after the milk carton hole, that I just like don't frankly understand what Tom Doak was trying to do there. But again, like, it's okay because at Bandon, there's so much consistency and the floor is so high that, again, if that was by itself, that'd be a separate discussion. But because it's part of a greater whole, and because you're like, cool, like I've just had like a very high floor and all this stuff, like it's okay, right? But I'm still grappling with the fact that it's a top 5 public course in the country. I still struggle with that.
And we've talked about it for a long time. All I want to do right now is go and play this course again.
I know.
Because I need a second look at it, because yeah, I want to see it in that north.
I feel like I missed something, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
biggest thing I feel
100%.
as we talk about it is like, I don't know y'all's list, but it sounds like it's going to be towards the bottom. Like we're about to have 8 dudes go to Bandon Dunes and put packed dunes in the 4-5 slot, 3-4-5 slot. And like, not that matters, but like, it feels like we're maybe missing something or we're not.
Yeah.
Or everybody else is just looking at, the people
The
like,
ocean.
Bell Reeve. It's like, that's recycled. That's from somebody else. I don't know anything about Bell Reeve, but there's those certain courses that become punching bags. Like right now, it's happened with Oak Hill. Like, for fried eggs, like Oak Hill might stink, and it's like, oh, okay, I didn't think about that. Sorry, JD's dad.
And it would be cool to see it when it's like incredibly fast. Like we were there, it wasn't as fast as what people say. Like hole number 8, I remember Pat telling me this. We got onto the 8th hole, which is before the double green hole, so it's kind of like a snoozer.
Oh, that's one of the snooziest holes we played. Yeah,
exactly. And Pat said, "Wow, this feels like a hole at some Muni in the Bay Area, which it's kind of like a straightaway par 4 with
trees left, bunker right,
exactly." Apparently, that green is wild, but we had the front pin and it wasn't really that fast. Like if the pin was back right and things were turned up because it wasn't raining all the time and it hadn't just snowed a week prior, maybe we would be sitting here saying that 8th hole, it doesn't look like anything, but Jesus Christ, that fucking green is insane. It wasn't like that for me. I didn't get that impression, but I've heard people say that about the 8th hole, that it's amazing, that green site. I just don't get it. I just didn't see it.
Yeah, it's
we need to go back.
Before we just logged on, I was telling I played Presidio this afternoon, and I was saying that the front 9, it was very warm in San Francisco, and the course was really crispy, and like it was interesting. Like balls were bouncing in ways I've never seen, and like a hole was drivable that wasn't drivable, and then you went to the back 9, and it was 52 degrees and like fog pumping in, and every iron shot was like clanky hands, and it literally felt like a different golf course. So to your point, if you only play Presidio when it's 52 and the fog is barreling over the hill, you're probably gonna hate it. But like Presidio front, and I was like, oh my god, like Presidio, like firm and fast and a little spicy, like it literally, I've played there so many times, like a light bulb went off. The guy, my buddy, was like hitting like like wedges that were like landing short and bouncing up, which anyone who's played Presidio, that does not happen ever. So to your point, Huss, it might have just been, I mean, again, we got boned on weather, and also too, that was the middle of the trip where like I was fine, but like we were all tired. Yeah, sorry, Dash, we've been doing all the talking. I want you to jump in. I'm trying to pull the thread on this. It's bothering me.
No, you guys are hitting all the points that I had in my head. I think there's definitely, a couple standout holes that we can mention, throughout our match that Chris and I had. But overall, I think it was an interesting course to play, but you mentioned a couple holes that were kind of like, questionable holes that were, why are these here? What's the point? They were kind of duds in my mind. Like 8 and 17 was one of those that was just like, I don't think anybody had the right number, in both groups. It's just a weird hole. Even the caddies, just we couldn't figure it out. But maybe that's the uniqueness or the fun of it, is you just never know. It could be different no matter which way the wind's blowing. I think of the one par 3 that we were both into the wind. He pushed his right and never made it to the green.
I don't know what that green looks like. I've never made it to the green. It was 14, and I lost that ball right. It went down to the bottom, almost onto like the 13 fairway, and I hit 3 exact same 60-degree wedges that landed the exact same spot and came back to my feet. And I gave the hole to Dash, despite him being in a bunker, which wasn't going to be easy either. But
I think I made double.
So bad. Bad. But that's another example of it's just such a hard hole. I mean, like, it's such a hard golf course. Can you imagine that hole downwind, howling downwind? You can't hold that green. Impossible. Like, right. I think it's just such a hard golf course. Oh, fuck.
And I mean, testament to the caddies, I think they help tremendously, at least for my game. But like, if you weren't playing with a caddy, you would never know, you don't miss right on that hole, or, on 9, like you're hitting uphill with a giant kind of wall of tall grass in front of you. You don't know where the green is. So shout out to Chris, who I had, for
the greens. The greens on
9. Everything.
Yeah.
Hussey, when you got close, you're getting robot on us. You're getting so excited about Pat Dunes.
I'm so sorry.
It is okay, Tom Doak. It is all good. Maybe that's the ghost of Tom Doak being like, you just don't understand it. I think that's
I don't. I mean, 17, the Redan, I think, Dash, I completely agree with you. Like, something was weird. I think it was wet. Like,
yeah.
If that hole
I think in
like
theory that hole
hard.
is sweet. It's so pretty,
yeah.
especially when, like, I imagine when the gorse is like, when that's like firm and fast with the gorse, like that might be like a top 5 hole on property. But yeah, to y'all's point, we all ended up short left and we're like, fuck. Like, it was infuriating. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we're doing it a disservice, but like any other thoughts? Like, I don't know. I mean, I just think, to Hussey's point, like, we're extremely excited to play it again and have our opinions changed. It just seems for our group it didn't really, and also too, we only got 1 bite at it. Granted, we didn't get as many second bites as we had hoped, so it's definitely a course that I think could have done. Like, we all understood Bandon trails after 1 round. It would have been fun to see it again, but I think Pacific Dunes could have merited another bite to understand it a little bit more. Or maybe not. Maybe we just need to begin to go next time when it's not 42 degrees and it just dumped rain, and that'll change our perception as well. Because you watch the no laying up video and like it's 35 miles an hour and like firm and fast, and like that is not the golf course we played.
Yeah. I mean, it's the one course I'm actually most excited to play again out of all of them. As much as I love trails hint is going to be my number 1. I actually don't want to spoil that memory of trails being so
I get that
by playing it again. I really want to play Pacific Dunes just to revisit it.
Yeah. It's kind of like what Neil says of no laying up. He describes Pac Dunes as sport, where it's like, and then I think Tron describes trails as a walk with your friends. And that's to your point. Like, I want to walk with my friends, but like, is it going to be better than my first walk with my friends? Where it's like, if it's sport, the first time we kind of got punched in the mouth, and now it's like, can we punch back? Are we gonna like it? Is it gonna feel good? Like,
hell,
I don't know.
Yeah, we can punch.
I don't think anybody can punch back on Pac.
No, we're gonna punch back. Come on.
But yeah, it's not a walk in the park like trails. It's not at all.
No,
but that's the beauty of Bandon. You get best of every world.
Yeah. And I will say, he's not here, but I do just very much want to quickly shout out Nick. I talk to Nick every single week, and he has been worried about Pacific Dunes since we booked this trip. And Nick broke 90. I think Nick's best ever is 87. He's a 16 point something, and he shot 89 at Pac Dunes. And like, I was just so proud of him. Like, it was also so funny because he was on number 15, the par 3 that's like really allegedly very hard to hold it on the green.
The 14 that we were talking about. Yeah.
He was kind of chipping it back and forth a little bit, and like Maddie stopped it with his foot, and Nick was so endearing. He was like, okay, I'm playing for a score, I'm trying to break 90. He touched with his foot, what do I do? And I was like, dude, we were kind of playing like, what would you have made? But just a shout out to Nick. He was so worried about that golf course, everyone would shoot 89. Just is super, super cool. Like two strokes away from his best ever on one of the hardest golf courses he's ever going to play. So, perfect. Well, now to the other Doak. I think our group's preference, Old Mac. Dash, you're starting us off. You've been. I think this was the reason why you really wanted to come on this pod. So, tell us about your experience at Pac Dunes at Old Mac, my friend.
It is. It is the reason why I wanted to talk on this pod. One of the reasons, but Old Mac by far was my favorite course out of the bunch. I think the first day we played it was kind of the first time we saw the sun in Bandon, Oregon. So that was one of the key kind of draws to it, or maybe that's why I remember it the most, is because when that afternoon sun shined and you got the long shadows across that entire field, it was just a vast, like, it was the biggest course it felt like I've been on in my life. Like, it was just massive. So many memorable holes. As I was going through the course preview again today, just to remember and highlight the ones that I love, I think I wrote down 15 holes. Like, I couldn't, there's so many that are memorable that I love, that were so unique, that I can't wait to, touch on this pod. But, I mean, we have many stories from it. We played it twice, so I got a good view at it at both times. It happened to be the course that I played my best golf at, but I think that's not a slim factor as to why I liked it the best. But just thinking about the little turn stand that they have, the cool railroad bunkers, is a lot of things that I hadn't seen before on a golf course were on Old Mac. So that's why I loved it so much.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. It's a course you want to play every day. Like, if I could pick any course to be a muni down the street from me, it would be that Old Mac layout. Like, it's never boring. Every single time you play out there, it's all about fun. It's supposed to play firm and fast the whole time, and it actually was pretty firm and fast what we were playing out there as compared to other courses. There's so many different, I won't say it's quirky, but there's so many different styles of golf holes. There's weird things. You got the Alps hole with the giant mountain in front of you that you have to hit over. You have the ocean, which the 7th hole ocean, like, it's hard to describe. It's basically like you end up on top of a sand dune about to fall into the water. And then you have the 8th hole Biarritz, which might be one of my favorite holes ever because of just how dramatic that green is. There's so many things about that golf course that make me just want to play it all the time. And is it the best course on property? I don't think so, but it's by far the most fun.
Yeah, I'm with y'all. I mean, I think that I'm thrilled that we got to play it twice, because that was an example of, we've talked a lot on this pod about how hard it is, and Hussey, you actually recently wrote into Shotgun Start about this, but how hard it is to, manage expectations and how to remove how you play from your perception. And I had just come off a double bogey free 76 at Bandon Dunes. And like an idiot, I was sort of like, I was kind of like, fuck yeah. Like, let's go tear it up, and I remember the first 2 holes, I made 2 pars, I actually 3 putted for par on 1. And then I hit this, I sort of just hit this bottom of the face driver that slammed into the hill on Old Mac. And I think I made a 7 or an 8, and all of a sudden it was the golf course had just absolutely sucker punched me in the face, and I was wobbly. And I mean, I was physically I was wait, I've just played 21 holes of great golf, and suddenly I'm walking by, and Chris is oh, you're no, you were on the walkway up on the hill. And then I hit this stupid wedge, and she's you're barely at the top of the hill. And then I blow it off the planet left. So I'm glad I got to do it again, because the first time I was kind of wobbling, because I was oh, I thought I was going to tear this place up like an absolute dipshit. But I'm with y'all. I think a couple things. One, Dash, you said it best. It feels like Old Mac is 10 million acres. And I think it's because Old Mac spills into Pacific Dunes. It's all kind of right there. To be clear, you see Pacific Dunes, but it's not really there. But it just feels like Old Mac is so expansive. 2, I mentioned this last time, I thought the ghost tree was going to be teeny tiny. The ghost tree is looking at you the whole time. And again, I'm happy we went when we went because I don't think it's going to be there when we get back there next time. But the ghost tree is massive and it's cool to have on a golf course like a fulcrum point. It's why I love Soul Park, which we're going to soon. That like knoll at the top of the hill, that first tee area where the tree is, it's like a meeting place. And you don't meet at the ghost tree, but the ghost tree is something that like orients you to where you are. You're always kind of looking, and I think that's really special. And it's just so much bigger than I thought. And also too, even though like 1 at Sheep Ranch, that walk down the hill is so pleasant, I think 1, 2, and 3 is like the best starting to any, maybe one of the best starting like stretches of holes that I've ever played, because like I think that it's sick and bold to have a drivable par 4 as your first. Number 2, it's a short par 3, the short, which if the pin's in the right spot, you can make a hole in one. You can also hit it in the front bunker and never come out again. And then you get to tee off over the hill on the ghost tree. And it's like, what an amazingly fun, like none of that's meant to challenge you unless you're a fucking dipshit who hits it into the fucking, slams your driver into the hill. But like, what an amazing, like, it's not hard, but what a cool intro. And then the ironic is then you go to the long where it's like number 4 is like, okay, we warmed you up. You might be 1 or 2 under par, but now you're just fighting for your, you're hitting like hybrid or chippy 3-wood into this hole. And like, what an amazing start to that golf course. I think that's huge because how a golf course starts is massive. Like Bandon Trails is my favorite. 1 at Bandon Trails is like not one of my favorite holes that we played. I think that the holes in the dunes, like you said, Hussey, are interesting, but like 1 is just not a great hole. It all feeds down. They had a net down there on Trails because all the balls end up in the same spot. That's not a great golf hole. But 1, 2, 3, especially 1, 2, and 3 at Old Mac is a truly special way to start that round. And really sticks with me. Like when the fucking starter told us to go and me and JD both hit into you guys on the green. Again, not our fault. I'm not going to forget that for a long time, and probably neither will you guys, huh?
I was about to say it's crazy when when the starter's like, hey, you guys need to go, like hurry up, it's your tee time, like go. They're like, it's a drivable par 4. JD's up there like, I'm going to hit them. Sure enough, lands like 4 feet from the green and rolls up all up on us.
Yeah. That starter was so adamant about us getting off that it is your time. Yeah, he had no idea the entire situation, who was playing. JD, that was no question he could hit the green. But like Ashton said, I mean, I felt so bad for you, Ash. I felt number 3. Like that's the one hole it's just Bandon's known for. And to see you top it hurt me. It rattled me. I saw your face.
It was devastating. It's really devastating.
I was just shocked. My jaw was dropped.
You go to Disneyland and they're like, Space Mountain's closed for maintenance. You're like, what the fuck are you talking about? I want to ride Space Mountain.
Yeah. Nope. And then it's just the perfect handshake into a golf course, 1, 2, and 3. And then you have 4, which is
so hard.
Both times I played 4, I was like, as I was playing it, I was like, this is a par 5, right? This has to be a par 5. I mean, there's no way. And then you realize once you get to the green, it's like, oh shit, it's not. So then you're like, oh, I need to go up and down for par when I'm 80 yards out. So that's so hard. And then, that part, and then number 5 is a par 3. I mean, I had a pretty sick up and down, probably one of the best. I don't know if you guys remember that, but shout out Chris for that read, because that slope on the green was insane. But there's so many different little memories that I have playing both times on that course. When you get to 17 or 16, of course, the Alps. JD, when he hit when they said, you do not want to be at the foot of that hill, and then it's still, I don't know, I can't remember if he had 3-wood or driver, but it made it to the bottom of that hill, and then he had a full swing 60-degree wedge, and of course he hits it to like 12 feet and then I can't remember if he sinks his putt or not. But we had the first time we played it, I think we had all 4 pars on the Alps, which was incredible. So
Yeah.
shout out that group.
Well, I need to shout out Jake for on 13 and 14. Like, our group, we were being Jake's hype man. Like, we were like, Jake, you gotta go for it. And he's like, fuck it. And he gets up there, ball front foot, and just hammers driver and like lands. Like on 13, it was like 3 feet from the green. And then on 14, he drives the green and he's got this eagle putt that he's like, I'm telling him, dude, you got this. Just step up there and make it. And he like scares the hole, and it was a great time. But those 2 holes are really fun, especially when you have the wind behind you and you know you can drive the green. Yeah, there's so much out there, all these different little templates. The Redan hole was fine, but the road hole before 11 was pretty cool. I think Ashton got the full treatment going into the road hole bunker. I remember going over the road hole green, and what was crazy is normally that the road hole green here at Old Mac has kind of this severe drop off of short grass, and what you're forced to do is putt up this very steep embankment. But with how much rain there was and how wet it was, you couldn't actually do that. You could not putt up this embankment. And so you're having to open up a 60-degree on super short grass and try and hit a flop shot onto the screen. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do golf wise. And yeah, there's a lot of great things. It's so much fun, that golf course.
Is that 11 you're talking about, the road hole?
Yeah, 11, the road hole.
Yeah, you cannot hold that green. Like, even how wet it was for us, like, it's impossible. You have to. Everybody in our group didn't, make the green. So, and then you had. I just thinking about going back to like 7. Like, there's no approach shot I've ever played, I think, that is like 7, where you have a 40-foot high wall of fairway, and then 10 yards beyond the green you have ocean. Like, the green is such a skinny little, and you're hitting it to the skinniest part, so you have to really play it the right way. You don't hit driver off the tee, and then you're left with short iron in, maybe a wedge, but with the wind blowing off the ocean, the wall, the green and the ocean behind it is just, you don't find that anywhere else but Bandon, I feel like. I mean, I've never played something like that. So many different little memorable holes that stand out that I can't get over. I think about often.
Yeah. I think the other thing, too, that I didn't process until we did it, I knew, obviously, Old Mac was template holes. But I think what it does a really good job of with the templates is actually creating 18 distinct memories and moments, right? Because even courses that are incredible, like great golf courses still inevitably run together, right? And oftentimes when courses are, there's places like Augusta that name the holes, but does whatever flower they name, that doesn't mean anything, right? They have just named this hole after a flower, and that has nothing to do with what the hole is. And I think what's really cool is we can talk about even now, it's yes, we all know that the road hole is 11, but that doesn't matter, right? It's the road hole, and we can actually have that formative memory. So I think one of the things that helps is, it's kind of ironic, it's this big, it just feels like a big ballpark out there, right? I said it's expansive, but then because of the way it is, it just feels more tangible, right? I can remember the holes by the names make sense. And I think it really has to be viewed in the totality of cool, the Alps would be fun and stupid, but then the long is long and hard. And that's really cool,
Yeah, and I'll never forget John Figueroa, 9 to 5 golf. on the 11th hole, road hole, he had the Cam Smith putt from around the bunker, and it was just. I think it's an example of what you're saying, Ashton. Like, each hole is kind of its own storybook. It's kind of its own chapter, and you get to, and they're all so distinct, despite being in this gigantic, expansive ballpark, that you get to see every single hole, from practically every point on, the western side of that ridge. You see every single hole on Old Mac, but they're also distinct. When you're on it, you're on that hole and you are experiencing it together, and it's just by itself. Nothing else exists when you're on a hole at Old Mac, despite being able to see everything else, because they're so unique. And I think that's just why this whole template idea really works, why it came to be many, many years ago.
And I think to shout out John again, he said it best. Like, again, this was just lack of experience and not knowing, but going back to the moments, the 18 distinct moments, is the best. Like, I'm bummed that we didn't get to play match play there, because we're always this crew, our group of friends, is always play match play. Every hole is its own thing. Stay present. And Old Mac, it's cool. Right now, it's me versus Dash, and it's the road hole, and that's all that matters. But it's almost like setting the scene, right? It's like this hole with this person, and that's all that matters. And there's something very unique and special about that. So I think next time we'll definitely make sure that Old Mac is towards the back half of the. I would candidly love, even though there's harder or better or whatever, I think the finals of our next Bandon trip should be at Old Mac, and it's oh shit, this person versus this person, and how do they navigate the road hole? And that feels very fitting, right, for the kind of golf that we're trying to play on these trips, and kind of championing match play. Old Mac feels like the best place, because again, it needs to be viewed in its totality, right? It's cool, you may have driven the green and made eagle on one, but then to Dash's point, you're probably not going to get up and down from 80 yards and make bogey on number 4. And that's fine, right? It's giving and it's taking away. And I think that's why it's special, right? Were y'all blown away by how big the ghost tree was? Is that just me, or was that impressive for y'all too?
It was definitely impressive, especially, seeing it on, you could see it throughout the entire course, but especially on number 3, and then on your way back on 17, I think, is when you see it on the way back, especially with the, when we played it in the afternoon, you get the sun hitting it in a way where it's just it stands out. You have to look at it as you walk by. And I mean, RIP to the tree. I mean, there's no way it's going to be up there for very long. I think, and then my last thing I want to say is 18. And Ashton, I want to hear your perspective from where you ended up on 18 around the green. But that's perfect for match play, like you were saying. So many matches can come down to that hole, and you can hit the bunkers from your tee shot and have a completely different look into the green. Tell me explain your experience on 18.
Yeah, so 18 is the punch bowl, if I remember correctly. I hit, I don't know, it doesn't matter. I was basically hole high, but I was over on the left, up in the rough, and the pin was all the way on the right. And basically, Chris came up and helped me. And essentially what I had is there was, from where I was at the pin, the options were, and the craziest thing was I was not that far away from the green. And I think I had a 76 yards to the pin. So I was well, I was a gap, or a lob wedge for me is 80 yards. So I kind of just want to hit it 80 yards and kind of try to suck it back off that hill and just kind of have it be close. But there was the point, to your point, Dash, there was a lot of options. They said there's a place you could actually hit it over on the left and hit a bump and run. And, but especially having a caddy, having those, we talked about this recently, but a lot of the golf we play is hit it here, hit it here, hit it here. And that was a great example of, it's kind of whatever you want it to be. But I basically hit kind of a full, like from just off the green, hit a full lob wedge behind. And it's actually kind of funny because Chris actually told me that they kind of need to do a little work on that green surround, I believe. Maybe you told me that, Hussey. But she even told me, she was like, that didn't, like, it softened a little bit. She's like, that didn't come off the way the hill, the way that it was sort of designed. So a little bit of work needs to be done there to kind of really bring that hole back. But yeah, I mean, finishing up on a punch bowl, we're going back to, we're talking about Mammoth Dunes, like, you could hole out for 2 off the punch bowl and to win the match, and that's incredibly thrilling. The only thing I'll say is, like, a low light is they are building a new, like, steakhouse there, and as John and I mentioned, it's just weird because that golf course is so out on its own. You know, the clubhouse is very understated, and then you're on 18 wrapping up this incredible round, feeling like you're out in the wilderness, and they're building a gigantic steakhouse. Like, I think John had the joke on the last pod. He was like, oh yeah, you know, CB McDonald's, like, his ideal thing is, like, you know, take it off the grill, you know, take it off the chimney where they're making like $50 steaks. And like, that feels a little strange, but you know, it's the commodification of Bandon that I understand. But yeah, I thought that was a super cool finishing hole. And 17, I don't remember what that one was called. Like, that one felt like we were like on like a hike. Like, there was so much going on. There was like a pond, there was fescue, there was trees, like there was so much. Like, if you're going for sheer diversity of a golf hole, there was railroad ties. Like, it was almost everything you could ever imagine a golf course in one hole, which again, like, is just, I think, really cool. And again, a distinct moment, right? Like, 17 is unlike anything on that golf course, but it's a distinct moment for you, which is incredibly different from 16, which is the Alps hole, right? It's just, it's cool. You have the, like, no two, like, I think I can, that is the golf course where I can most distinctly peck at every hole, which again makes sense for the templates, but I think that's incredibly special. And again, not something we ever get to see, right? Like, me and Hussey play most of our golf at Metro, but like, a lot of holes look like it's pretty similar, right? Okay, like pretty flat green, like, yeah, okay, like, it's all very sharp at Old Mac.
But that 17th hole, like, why is there a pond? There hasn't been a pond the entire round. Like, that's just so strange. And like, it's a reachable pond. It's a pond that everyone goes in. I went in it.
Both times.
It's I don't know. It's kind of stupid.
What is that templating? Like what is the callback there?
It's called the Little Stone, which I have no clue. Yeah, I know there was a lot of discussion when they were building it. There were issues about that hole, but yeah, the pond just kind of throws things off. But 18, yeah, the punch bowl definitely needs. I didn't say it. I assume Chris said it, but yeah,
it's fuzzy.
It's fuzzy. It's ratty. It needs to get scruffed down a little bit. The steakhouse, they're also putting in a new putting course, new punch bowl type thing.
Cool.
Putting course there. Because apparently the actual punch bowl putting green gets so packed in the summer. Like, you have to wait in line to play it, which seems crazy, but understandable. So, loved Old Mac.
We didn't do this for Pacific Dunes, but that kind of feels fitting with how we felt about it. What was y'all's favorite hole at Old Mac?
I'll just say the Alps. I mean, we played it twice. Had a chance at birdie on the second time we played it, but we all made par, and we were able to, you know, we all rang the bell afterwards. I think it was just unique. Crazy hole. I mean, we've never played something like that. Like that, you don't see the green from the tee box, and I can't even remember if you hit driver or less than driver. But I think the second time I played it, I had a hybrid into the green, and it's just so fun. That's all. Yeah.
For me, it's the Biarritz number 8. From up on top there, looking down on just the sheer size of that green and the giant trough in the middle, it just goads you into doing so many different things. Like, I stood up there and I said, okay, pins back left. I need to land this short of the trough, let it run up. So I'm going to hit a chippy draw 5-iron. Like, I've never said those words before. And sure enough, you get up there and you're like, I have to do this, and there's nothing else I can do. So you do it, and sometimes you succeed and sometimes you fail. But that's what's so cool about, I think, about that hole, because you can play it so many different ways, but in order to get close, you gotta do the weird shit.
Yeah.
And that's coming off of the turn stand when you're like getting, you're in line for a little Irish coffee or whatever it is.
Yeah, I house the Polish.
Then you gotta go ahead and hit a shot. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Not fun, but fun at the same time. Yours, Ashton?
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think it's number one, because I think it's the interactive nature. Like, I think the beautiful thing about number one is number two's tee box is very close. And so I think that if it's done right, Mr. Marshall, you wait for the group to clear. But like, if it's done right, as you're 5 steps off the green, 6 steps off the green, your friend is, the first drive is in the air. And what's the first thing you do? You all turn around. Who hit it? Where is it? Is it going to make the green? I think that anticipation is so fun. And you can kind of, like, and even from number one, you can kind of see the top of the ghost tree. So it's like, you can see the whole, you can kind of see the beginning part of the golf course. But I think that anticipation of like, okay, here we go, Old Mac, we're not yet over the ridge. We're not yet onto the golf course. But just the fact of like, next time if we go with 3 groups, right, it's like one group's walking off the green, group 2 hits, And then also because it's a short hole, you could even argue that the first group can actually see when the third group would be teeing off. So I love it when there's sort of those, it's another reason why I love Soul, right? Is like you're, I guess, no, well, that's maybe a bad example, but I just love when you're able to like interact with other groups in that way. And you're kind of like organically watching other people hit shots. And I think number one and kind of where 2 is big. It's just really cool. Yeah. I'm with you guys. Okay, I've already given mine, y'all. Huss, start us off. Rankings. Again, we're not going to do Sheep Ranch unless y'all want to. We didn't get to play it really, but your top 4, Huss, and just a quick explanation as to why.
Bandon Trails, Pacific Dunes, Old McDonald, Bandon Dunes.
Wow,
Bandon
Pacific
Trails,
Dunes too. I'm kind of surprised.
Yeah, no, I've obviously changed it multiple times in my head, but Bandon Trails, just because the sun came out, the course is a hike. It's a beautiful walk. The reveals, the isolated nature of each of the holes.
You loved 11, the hole with like the lake on the right. Like
I felt like I was at Augusta National, and obviously I have no idea what that's like, but it just felt like there was something so incredible about that golf hole. There were so many different ways to play it. Pacific Dunes, I think I want to test myself as a golfer, and Pacific Dunes might be the best place to test everyone's skills at playing golf. You hit every single golf club in the bag, despite there being some really, really bad holes, like 15, that long par 5. I just did not get that hole. I still think it's the hardest golf course out there, and if you really want to test yourself, that's where you go and play. Old Mac, we've just talked about it for 25-30 minutes. It's so much fun. I'd play that course every day for the rest of my life if I could. And then Bandon Dunes, maybe it was because the curse of being the first course that I kind of don't remember it as well, but I remember 3-4 holes, and that's about it. It was the best. I would say it had the best greens. It was probably in the best condition out of all the courses that we played. But yeah, that's my ranking.
I'm excited for you to get back. I'm excited for you to play Bandon again. I think that's another one. Like, I liked it the first time, and it like went to another level on second play for me. But
right on.
I understand.
Yep.
Dash and Kitty Cat.
Kitty Cat?
Does Kitty Cat have a ranking as well?
Reggie does have a ranking. We call him King Reginald. He says his favorite are Old Mac, then Trails, Bandon Dunes, and then Pack Dunes.
I think that's mine. No, Trails. Trails and Old Mac.
Trails first. Yeah.
No, this isn't about me. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. Fuck it.
That's all right. It's about King Reginald. But no, we have, Old Mac was my favorite. Most memorable holes by far. Pack, Bandon Trails, was unique in itself. I mean, you talked about it on the last pod. Every hole was just so unique, and the reveals of everything were incredible. Super fun. Played a great match against Pat. Came down to 18. Bandon Dunes. I mean, from that one, I feel like that was the first one that we played, so that's easy to forget because of all the golf we played afterwards. But looking back and listening back to the summary of all the holes, I mean, you think about 16, 17, and 18 on Bandon Dunes was incredible, finishing holes. And then I'd throw Sheep Ranch in there right after Bandon Dunes. We played 11, but the 11 that we played were fun. I mean, with good weather, you would have the best looking holes, best approach shots in the greens, I would say, on the property. And then Pack Dunes, I think from my experience, they were definitely the hardest course and, most challenging from just from the circumstances we were in. But that would be my top 5 for my 5 ranked. But, shout out to the caddies, Chris. I had her every round that I played. She made all the difference. I probably saved, more than 5+ strokes on every course we played. So shout out and shout out, 511. I think was I in 511? You guys were in 512, 511 for us. I think we had a great,
Whoa! Holy cow! You guys were 512. We were 511.
Oh, 512.
511.
Yeah, 512. Shout out the group that we had. We were all about the vibes, all about recovery. Shout out JD for bringing all the recovery mechanisms. My legs felt great. Shout out Nike for being the most weatherproof shoes to ever exist. I felt like
those were also the ones that ripped Pat's toenail off. So we have conflicting reports of.
I can't confirm how Pat felt, his fit and feel, but mine were perfect. So beautiful. I had a blast. Can't wait to go back. Can't wait for the shuttle ride with our boy Carrie,
our board,
boy Carrie, and everything else that comes with Bandon Dunes. So yeah.
Wonderful. And this is, I'm also just curious, you guys excited now for the cookout? So for folks listening, cookout is a week away. So one of the nice parts is our Bandon trip was 2 months before the cookout. So I'm definitely itching for some camaraderie, some match play, hopefully some different weather, even though people are sending us advanced forecasts of rain in Southern California, which I hope is wrong. But I hope you guys are getting excited for some match play and some, other than Jake, who promises he'll come next year. We have 7 out of 8 of us ready to compete and bring home the Weber Grill. So hopefully you guys are excited.
I am.
That's all I have to say. Team Hot Dog. Team Hot Dog.
Just trash Team Hot Dog. Jesus.
Team TBD. We'll kind of see how it all nuts out.
Oh,
but
wow. Oh.
All I will say is there might be some Bandon cohesion. We'll say there might be some. There might be some continued vibes, but what does that mean? I don't know, but there might be some continued vibes.
Hopefully some rematches too. That would be kind of fun.
Yeah, we'll see. What I mean, vibe, just not the food stuff. I mean, shout out to the food at Soul Park is 10 out of 10.
Yeah, Zadie's is incredible. Yeah, that place is so good. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Thanks, Ash.
I don't think so. I mean, any parting thoughts? Anything y'all want to share? I think we kind of unloaded the
No.
clip
Looking forward to
chamber,
seeing you
whatever.
guys at the cookout next weekend.
Yes, sir. Well, guys, thanks for coming on, and yeah, we'll do it again. Dash, thanks for your first time. And anytime you want to come in and chop it up or anything, we're I know you're a private course guy, but it's okay. We can always discuss.
I'll talk about private courses in the Bay.
This is the Municipals, sir.
Yeah. And to be clear, we've never
played a.
No, you guys have
private.
never played. Yeah.
No idea. No private courses.
Olympic Club last Sunday. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm unsure of this. Many people are saying. Well, guys, have a great rest of your night. And Hussey, you're probably past your bedtime, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
All right.
Peace.
Thanks.